Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast. It is Thursday, December 14th. And later today, at TigerIllustrated.com, we have some insight into that time that Jeff Scott spent 2 days in the home of Chris Rumpf and his family in Gainesville, Florida, trying to recruit him to come to Clemson. This was in 2017, shortly after Clemson won the national title, and Chris Rumpf was an assistant at Florida. So check out TigerIllustrated.com for that fascinating story. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. That's Parham law.com. Upstate Foodies. Want to take a moment to talk to you about our favorite taco spot, Willie Taco. 5 locations across the upstate. This award-winning team has been serving up fresh taco fusion for a solid decade now. The chefs at Willie Taco utilize the freshest, most creative, and sometimes unexpected ingredients in their kitchens. Come see why Southern Living, Garden and Gun, and Food and Wine Magazine are raving about Willie Taco and their signature offerings, such as their Southern Tide, crispy avocado, Nashville hot chicken tacos, literally flavors you will not find anywhere else, folks. And don't forget about the cocktails, super fresh margaritas, ice cold cerveza, and over 80 tequilas served up daily from behind the bar. So don't wait, folks. Your Willie Taco Familia is ready to serve you up their twist on funky fresh fusion. It's the Willie way. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. Okay, I've interviewed Rick Stockstill several times over the years, but never in this type of extended format. This is great stuff on so many levels. Hope you enjoy. Okay, joined by Rick Stockstill, whose name is quite familiar to a lot of Clemson folks. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, Larry. Appreciate you having me on here, and I hope you guys are doing good.
Of course, of course. Well, first of all, sorry about the parting with Middle Tennessee. I know it has to be tough just when you've devoted that much of your life to that school. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share or say just in reflection on that.
No, I was, obviously it was hard. I've been fired. I've been on staffs, there at Clemson 3 times when we got fired. And, but this was the first time in my professional career that I had been fired. So, that was tough. And, nobody wants to get fired. I devoted, like you said, 18 years here. I gave this program, these players, everybody, my heart and soul for 18 years. And, we had a lot of great moments. And, when you, like anything, when you can't go out on your terms, it's always hard. But this was my 41st year as a college coach. So I understand the profession, so it was disappointing because, it wasn't, we had a tough year. We lost to 2 top 10 teams the first 2 games of the season, Alabama and Missouri. Then we had 5 one-score losses. So we didn't have a great year. We were coming off 2 great years, the previous 2 years, and it wasn't broke. I just needed to fix a couple things, and obviously I didn't get the time to fix it. So, but just proud of what we accomplished here. But to answer your question, yeah, Larry, it was a tough deal, and still want to coach. So, but no, I'm proud of what we accomplished here at Middle Tennessee.
I follow this Middle Tennessee only superficially. So you have to pardon me, but I've got y'all's schedule, y'all's results from 2023 pulled up here on my computer. And I'm not saying this in a brown-nosing way at all, but I look at the results and I don't see anything that says, oh God, that's bad. Like fireable type. I mean, I see a 4-point loss at Missouri 7 days after you went to Tuscaloosa. And like you said, I see a lot of other close games. It's hard for me to really wrap my mind around fired after in the season after you win at Miami by 2 touchdowns. And like you said, you have a really good year the year before. It's hard for me to really comprehend it.
Yeah, it was, and we always play, at least 2 Power 5 teams, sometimes some years 3, because that's our way. That was Middle Tennessee's way of raising money. We'd get $2 million from Alabama, $1.5 million, from Missouri, so in theory, we beat Miami the year before. We had, 8-4 or 8-5. We beat, San Diego State in the Hawaii Bowl. But realistically, if you look at it, we play a 10-game schedule, because on paper you're not supposed to beat Alabama and you're not supposed to beat Missouri, and we've beaten Missouri before. We beat them in 2016, but, we've had a lot of Power 5 wins, but on paper you're not supposed to win those games. So you're looking at where, not everybody else, but the Power 5 guys, they play a 12-game schedule, so they got a better chance of getting 6 wins, to get in a bowl game, where we're basically playing a 10-game schedule. Now you got to win, 6 games. You got to win 60% of your games just to get, bowl eligible, where, it just makes it tougher.
As you schedule these games over the years, as you said, that's what an athletic department does for money. I don't know if part of you is cynical, but it was a part of you during that time thinking, wow, well, if this turns sour, there could be some irony here, because this money that we're bringing in to add to our coffers could end up being money to pay my buyout if I get let go.
No, I never thought of it that way. It was, to me, I always looked at it, Larry, as this is what we're doing. So and this is not sour grapes. I'm not, I'm not that kind of guy, but, we've had the worst facilities, in the conference. We still dress our locker room still in the basement of the basketball gym. We share a weight room. We share a training room. We don't have very good facilities. And now we just started this past summer. They're building a $60 million facility, and it's going to be phenomenal. It'll be great. And, but long overdue. And you go back to Clemson, when, Tommy Bowden was there, what facilities we had, and really more Tommy Bowden, because when Tommy West was there, the arms race of facilities hadn't really taken off yet. But when Tommy Bowden was there, and you heard how much he talked about the need for facilities at Clemson, when Tommy West got fired at Memphis, he said the same thing. They got to make a commitment to facilities. And you look at it, and Dabo's done a phenomenal job. I don't want to take anything away from him. Clemson, those players, assistant coaches have done a phenomenal job. But, their climb kind of started when, Terry Don and, the facility stuff started getting built. Memphis, when Tommy left, when Tommy got fired, they started building facilities there. And then Memphis became one of the top group of five conferences, top teams in the group of five. So there's sometimes, not always, but a lot of times there's such a correlation, with, facilities that, now they want NIL money, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they wanted facilities. And to me, once we get facilities here, then, I have no doubt that this program, will take off.
There is a similarity there. You mentioned Tommy Bowden. The push for facilities improvements began under him, and the actual wheels were turning on it. And the West End Zone facility, which I'm guessing you're familiar with, they moved into it in 2009. Tommy never got a chance to occupy that office in the new facility that he spent years helping raise funds for.
Yeah, we played Clemson in 2009.
Yep.
And so I did see it. That's the last time I've been to Clemson. But so I did, and so it kind of is very, kind of how paths crossed. But Coach Bowden did, push for that, and never got a chance to, to utilize it. Tommy West pushed for it at Memphis, never got a chance to utilize it. Rick Stockstill pushed for it at Middle Tennessee, is never going to get a chance to utilize it. So, but Clemson is better because of Tommy Bowden, pushing for facilities. Memphis is better because of Tommy West pushing for facilities. Middle Tennessee will be better because Stock pushed for facilities.
I can remember Jack Leggett. You could say the same thing about him. He gets fired at Clemson in, I guess that was 15. I could be getting the year wrong, but I remember a few weeks later, he came, well, not a few weeks, but maybe a couple of months or a good while later, he came back to watch a couple of practices when Monty Lee was the coach. And I remember sitting with him in the bleachers, in the seats on the first base side, and he couldn't stop looking behind him at this brand new, sparkling new operations facility that he had spent years fundraising for, but he wasn't going to get a chance to occupy that office either. So it's just it's one of the, I guess maybe one of the just cruel realities that can happen if you coach for a long time, that maybe a common thread there, regardless of even the sport.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I guess my last year at Clemson was 2003, 2 or 3, yeah. And I used to always say, my brother played at Clemson when they won the national championship there in 81. And in 2000, I was saying 2001 that if my brother could remember his locker combination, he could go into Jervy, and because we still had the same things, so the old metal lockers and everything. And, it's just amazing, the transformation of Clemson now. It's just, I've been to several places, and, it's hard pressed to find a better facility than what Clemson has now.
It's funny. I had Ellis Johnson on the podcast a few weeks ago, and y'all were on, what's that? Yeah, y'all were on the staff together here.
Yeah. Eli's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hey, but he was marveling because he comes up here on a pretty regular basis. His son is a walk-on, Charlie, And Ellis has some good, I think some good friends up here that he visits on a pretty regular basis. And so he was marveling at the facilities and saying, it wasn't like that when I was there. And he said, and I want to ask you this, is something I'd never heard.
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The horse arena,
the livestock arena.
Yeah. Tommy West, the head coach, and it's pouring down rain. It's August. It's pouring down rain for a week, and we can't get out and practice. So Tommy takes us over to the livestock deal. I knew he was going to say that, and we're practicing, and they got horse crap and all that stuff, And Eli are walking out, and he said, "If this gets out and anybody knows we're out here practicing, we'll never sign a recruit."
Well, that's what I asked him. I said, I've been around here a long time, but I haven't heard that story. And he's like, "Yeah, we were trying to recruit. We were scared to death that a recruit would hear about it."
Yeah.
That is wild. So at that time, the options, if there was inclement weather, I don't think the track facility was there at the time, was it?
No, there wasn't anything.
So you go to the Jervy gym?
Or the volleyball or the Jervy gym there. We'd go in there and the floor was so bad you couldn't. I mean, back then you still, hit and everything like that, but it was a little bit harder, but it was a glorified walkthrough.
Wow. And it's crazy. I remember, of course, Terry Don Phillips deserves all the credit in the world for his identification of Dabo as this gem in the making that really not a lot of other people saw. And of course, the hire of Mike Noonan, who just won his second national title in 3 years in soccer. Brad Brownell was a Terry Don hire, has probably his best team right now. But Terry Don, in fairness, didn't see the value of an indoor practice facility. And I remember him telling me, and this is when Dabo was pushing for it, I remember Terry Don saying, "Now, Larry, why would I want to spend," and I don't know how much the dollar figure was, $10 million on something we're going to use 14 times in a year? And the reality is they use that thing all the time for not just football purposes, but I think you have a lot of wisdom now looking back at just how important an indoor facility can be, whether you're at Clemson or anywhere.
Yeah, and I think, 10 years ago, 15, whatever years ago, everybody thought you used an indoor facility, for when it rained.
Yeah.
Or if you're up north, and it's cold and, it's snowing, But what people don't understand is, like, a basketball player can go in and shoot basketball year round. A football player, a quarterback, a receiver, they can go in there in January at 8:00 at night and throw. Other sports, like you said, can go in there and utilize it, but football players, it doesn't have to be just during the season. It's part of their development. Quarterbacks, receivers, just go in there and run routes on your own as a receiver. You can work on so many things. An offensive lineman can go in and work on things that you can't do outside, like a basketball player. You give the basketball player the key, and he can go in there at 6 a.m. or at 10:00 at night on a Friday and shoot. And, a football player never had those options or the ability to do that if he didn't have an indoor facility.
I always like to ask people to go back to before it was obvious Dabo was a star in the profession, when there were still questions about him, and say, hey, what was your opinion of Dabo at the time in 2008, 2009, 2010, before he really got things rolling? So I'm curious. I don't think y'all know each other that well. Maybe I'm wrong. Is that accurate?
No, I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say we know each other great, but, he replaced me when I went to East Carolina. He took my place, and I'm guessing because I think I had met him earlier. I mean, when he was at Alabama, I think I don't, but I think I have, because we had visited Alabama when Coach Stallings was still there. Woody, we went up there and visited as a staff. So, but no, I wouldn't say I know him well, but I know him.
So as of the 2009 opener, that was to start his first full season as head coach. What was your take just from the outside looking in? Because I think your opinion's important. It's interesting just because of how rooted you had been at Clemson and your familiarity with the culture and with their sort of walking in the wilderness for a couple of decades after they were prominent in the late 80s, early 90s. Can you remember what your, I guess, feel for it was, or your take on the Dabo hire, your take on just him as a coach before he, became known as a future Hall of Fame coach?
It's probably hard to say or hard to describe, because it was just getting started. In 2009 was only my fourth year, I think 6, 7, 8. Yeah, my fourth year as a head coach. And I remember, pregame there, when head coaches get together and talk, I remember he said, not too bad for two old wide receiver coaches, and I've always remembered that. But no, again, it's just, you want to say, I'm not going to sit here and say that, yeah, I knew he was going to be, ultra successful or anything like that, because heck, you never know.
Yeah.
And, but, I've always, and I guess he was there because he was there, I guess, in 5 or 6, 7 years as an assistant, so, he had a good relationship with the players, with the administration and all that. And, he just needed an opportunity, and he got his opportunity and has done a marvelous job, with that opportunity. So, but for me to sit back here, 15 years later and say, yeah, I knew that, it's so many things have to, hit right, and, he got the facilities and got good players and got good coaches, and he did a great job or has done a great job, so I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Clemson, and just, I'm happy for, I still got, a handful of friends on that staff and in the community there. So I'm just happy I'm happy for Dabo, and I'm happy for the Clemson people.
I think it was several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe it was after one of the national championship seasons. I think I was writing a book on one of those seasons, and a fact sort of stopped me in my tracks as I was trying to tell the Dabo story and just sort of the progression of how he got to where he is. And I'm like, wait a minute, if Stockstill doesn't go to East Carolina, then that would have probably been a third year for Dabo out of coaching. And if you're out of coaching for 3 years, it's really, really hard to get back in it. And so you might be the reason not only that Dabo is at Clemson, but that Dabo is a coach. Does that make sense to you?
I think it makes more sense in today's world than it did 20 years ago. I think back then, today, if you're out of coaching for a year, it's hard to get back in, very hard. Back then, it wasn't as common because back then you didn't have all the analysts, you didn't have 10 coaches, you only had 9 coaches, so I think 20 years ago, 20 whatever years ago it was, that you had a better chance of getting back in the business. I mean, you had a better chance of getting back in it because people understood that there weren't as many, opportunities for you to get in. It was harder to get back in it. So I don't know if 2, 3, 4, 5 years out of it, would have been as bad then as being out of it, 3, 4 years in today's time.
I guess part of that context is Dabo, the 2 years that he was out of coaching, he wasn't just sort of sitting on his couch, sending resumes and just dying to get back in it. He was actually establishing himself as a really good commercial real estate broker. And so my take has been for several years since I came to that realization 5 or 6 years ago is that had you not left, my opinion is Dabo would probably be one of the top 10 most successful commercial real estate people in the world. He would have been great at something had it not been coaching. It would have probably been commercial real estate, I would imagine.
Most coaches that are good coaches are successful or can be successful in whatever they do. And you've heard stories of guys that, coached for a long time and got out of it and became the best at whatever they're doing now. And guys that were good at, selling cars or commercial real estate or whatever, and they get into coaching because there's so many similarities, between coaching and athletics and the real world that if you have the drive and the work ethic and the passion that whatever you're doing, you're going to be successful. So there's so many, and you've heard it all your life, and I heard it all my life, the similarities of what it takes to be successful in athletics and how it translates to the real world.
If we're just sitting and looking at your bio, it says Stockstill leaves Clemson in 2002 for offensive coordinator job at East Carolina. I think it's natural for most folks to say, why did you do that? Can we revisit that and sort of go back to that moment in time and sort of paint the picture? I mean, obviously coming off a rough game against Texas Tech and Mike Leach and all those cats in the Tangerine Bowl. But I'm just, what are your recollections and what can you share for what was going through your mind as you evaluated what to do?
I came to Clemson, as a quarterback coach, coached quarterbacks for 5 or so years, then was a receiver coach. And I had a desire to be a head coach one day. And back then you had to be an offensive coordinator. They weren't hiring guys that hadn't been offensive, defensive coordinators before. And I was the co-coordinator and called plays in 95 for Tommy West. We had a good year and all that, but, I just felt for me to have the opportunity to be a head coach, I needed to step out of my comfort zone maybe a little bit. I'd been there 14 years. I'd been offered jobs, not coordinator jobs before. And again, things are so much different today than what they were back then, that I think it almost got to the point that when people said, when they had openings, you know, he's not going to leave at Clemson. He's not going to leave Clemson. He's been there forever. You know, he's not going to leave. And, you know, I wanted to be a head coach. And I had a chance to go there as the offensive coordinator and coach the quarterbacks. And, you know, that's why I left, because I thought it would help me down the road be a head coach.
Was Brad Scott the OC here at the time? Yes, because Michael Caine had already left, right? No, Caine was let go after the 2004 season.
Good golly, I'm old. Yeah, okay, but
maybe O'Kane. Maybe it was O'Kane. I know that Bowden made some decisions he did a reshuffling after the 2003 season, moving Scott.
All right, so 99 and 2000, it was Rodriguez. Then 2001 and 2, I bet it had to be either Brad or Mike.
Okay. Was it a hard decision?
Yes. Yeah. You know, because, you know, my kids were young then. I think Brent was first or second grade. Emily, my daughter, was, you know, 3 or 4, whatever, 4 or 5. You know, Sarah, I mean, we'd been there, like I said, forever. And, you know, but I felt like I needed to take that step out of my comfort zone. And the thing about it, I was there 14 years, but it felt like, you know, I had 4 different jobs, because 1 year with Coach Ford, you know, 4 years with Coach Hatfield, 5 years with Tommy West, you know, 4 years with Coach Bowden. You know, it's like, you know, you're at the same place, but you're learning, you know, 4 different ways of doing things, you know, with the 4 different coaches, you know. So I didn't move, but it felt like I had moved, you know, from a philosophical standpoint of what I was learning. So, but yeah, it was a tough deal. Or not a tough deal, but a tough decision.
Steve Logan, he had been let go at ECU, right?
Yes.
And who was the successor?
John Thompson. John Thompson. You know, he was a defensive coordinator at LSU, at Florida. I think he had come from Florida there, but he'd been around as a defensive coordinator.
And you were at ECU for 1 year before going to South Carolina.
South Carolina.
And
yes.
Was that just a better opportunity?
Well, here we weren't very good
at
East Carolina, and we had a first-year head coach, and the athletic director resigned in the summer going into that year. So, and then the president, we were playing University of Miami Hurricanes, and we're getting off the bus to go to the game, and we get this thing, or somebody says the president just got fired. So I'm thinking about it. You know, here we are with a first-year head coach. The athletic director who hired him is no longer there. The president is no longer there. You know, it doesn't look like we're going to be very good the next year. So I said, I'm going to try to find the first job I can south, you know, that I can after the season. So Coach Lou Holtz let a bunch of guys, not a bunch of guys, but a handful of guys go after that year. And Skip, his son, called me. I've known Skip forever, and asked if I'd be interested. And I said yes. And, you know, I went down there and met with Coach Holtz and Coach McGee, who was the athletic director at the time.
So when you pulled your kids out of Clemson and you're in East Carolina for one season, and then you're like, I gotta figure out somewhere else to go. What are those conversations like? I mean, can't be easy, just being that sort of moving around and bouncing around again after 1 year.
Right. It's, and that's what I talked to Coach Holtz about. I said, I was at Clemson for so long, which he knew, and then I go to East Carolina, and now I'm moving again, and talk to him. And at that time, that's when assistant coaches started getting 2 and 3 year contracts. And I said, at first I told him no. I said, no, I don't want it. And he and Coach McGee, the athletic director, called me back the next day and, said, and part of Larry, and I'll just be honest, I had given Clemson so much of my life and competed against South Carolina. And I know there's been millions, but a lot of coaches that have coached both at Clemson and South Carolina. So I struggled with that part of it. I told Sarah, my wife, I don't know if I can do this because I've competed against South Carolina for so long. I don't know if I can do it. And I told Coach no. And then, like I said, they called me back the next day and what will it take? And I said, if I'm going to do this, Coach, I need a 3-year contract. It wasn't about money or anything like that. I said, I need a 3-year contract just because I need some stability with my family. And so they did that. And that was probably the major reason, for going to South Carolina was just the stability of, having a multi-year contract.
Even with that stability, was it still hard or weird or all the above, both of the above, I guess?
It wasn't hard, but it was weird, because I'd recruited just about every school in the state of South Carolina, over 14 years at Clemson. And then now you're walking in with a different logo on your shirt. It was a little different. I still had great friends at Clemson, with Brad Scott and Burton Burns and all those guys. I still had a great friendship with them because that's never going to change no matter what logo you wear on your chest. But it was weird, but not to the sense that it was hard because at the end of the day, you're still coaching, you're still trying to impact kids and change their lives.
Okay, so that's your job, and obviously lots of coaches have gone back and forth, not just in this rivalry, but others. Your loyalty only goes so far as your, who's paying you. But for your kids, I mean, I'm assuming they still had some Clemson gear after just 1 year of being away from Clemson. What was that like for them and your wife, for that matter?
For my daughter, it wasn't, she didn't know because, like I said, when she left Clemson, she's 3 years old and 4 years old. She doesn't know, doesn't understand. But my son, Brent, who, would come to practice with, Tommy West and then Tommy Bowden and is always, at the offices and is always on the sideline of games. He understood, like we'd be in the backyard throwing balls and I would never tell him, run a post, or run a takeoff. I'd always signal to him, what our signals were. And, one of the signals was, you tap your head and, we called it Gamecock Killer. That's when, when Rod caught the ball there in 2001 or 2000 there, so, and, I would signal him something. He said, post, or I'd signal him, tap my head, and he'd go Gamecock Killer. So he knew that he understood it. and, obviously he's a coach now and everything. So, but I explained to him, he said, Dad, I said, Brent, this is part of the profession, and, we'll come up with some new signals. and it's probably good for Sarah because, she maintained her friendships there in that she had with her girlfriends in Clemson and families and whatnot, and our neighbors. And, she met, and so it was easy for her because it was getting her back closer to her friends at Clemson and, really a little bit closer to her family in Florida also.
So that 2004 season, your first obviously in Columbia, do you remember when you first got the inclination or maybe the hint that, Lou might be about to hang it up? This might be it for him?
Probably mid-season, you started hearing things. Coach never came in and said, this is my last one or anything like that. But about mid-season, it was, and then it leaked out the week of the Clemson game. But probably about mid-season is when you started hearing rumors about it.
When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith & Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union? If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Its office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. So 2 years after your last game at Death Valley, I guess, y'all beat South Carolina in 2002 with Charlie Whitehurst, I think, making some big plays in the second half. You're back in Death Valley for the infamous brawl game. I still have vivid memories of not just the brawl, but of just how charged the environment was from the very beginning, with the South Carolina players running to the hill to, I guess, greet, for lack of a better word, Clemson. And then just from that point on, it was sort of on. It just felt like you could feel it brewing the whole time. What are your sort of snapshots that you think back to, and just the vibe that you sort of recall as you think back to that game and that event, I guess?
Well, when I guess to start to the beginning, when our players ran down the hill and waved them down and all that kind of stuff, I turned to one of our ops guys and I said, "These boys don't know what they just did."
Oh, wow.
And, that, and then, the game was close and all that. And then the unfortunate deal, with that fight there, I've got, I got my opinion on how it was started and, what went on and everything on that. Cause Brent was with me. My son was with me on the sideline. So, I've got vivid, opinions and memories of it.
All right. Well, let's hear them.
Well, I mean, it's third down there, and we throw past Savell, either sprints or scrambles out, and it's incomplete. And, so whatever, Clemson's punt block team is coming on the field. Our punt team is coming on the field. Clemson's defense is still on the field. South Carolina's offense is still on the field. So you got 40 guys, coming on the field, and somebody sees somebody push and all that, and then it just breaks loose. And I remember, first thing I did, I got Brent. I found him, and we stayed on the numbers on the visitor sideline. We were on the numbers, and I didn't try to go out there because I was worried about him. And Ty Hill, who I recruited, I got him and I grabbed him. I said, Ty, stay out of it. So it's Ty Hill, me and Brent. We're just standing on the numbers, kind of watching, talking about. I said, this is crazy, and I said, don't go out there, Ty. Don't do it. And he didn't. And I tried to get Yusuf Kelly, because he was, involved in it. I yelled at him. I said, Keith, but I couldn't get him. And I tried to get some of the guys that I knew to stay out of it, and then it just, moved on down to the hill and all that kind of stuff. It was just a sad day, and, just very disappointing because it cost both teams an opportunity to play in a bowl game. And, but the thing I remember about it is just both punt block and punt teams, everybody's on the field, and, our guys, the night before, was that fight, the Detroit Pistons game and all that stuff. We come down Saturday morning, and that's all everybody's talking about. Did you see that melee, da-da-da-da-da? And so you wonder if that's logged into both Clemson players and South Carolina players, because I know Clemson players watched it, and just you never know. I've always believed, by the saying, garbage in, garbage out. And if you're listening to garbage, if you're watching garbage, eventually garbage is going to come out in your actions. And you watch that garbage Friday night, did it come out Saturday afternoon?
What about, and refresh my memory here if you don't mind, by game time, it was already known that Lou was out and that Spurrier was coming. Can you enlighten on your memory of when and how Lou informed the staff and the players that he was hanging it up?
I don't think he ever informed the players. I never knew about Coach Spurrier coming until Sunday or Monday after the game.
Okay.
I don't think anybody knew that. But it leaked out, I think, Wednesday or Thursday that, Coach Holtz was going to retire. I don't recall him ever addressing the team prior to the game. I think the players all assumed that he was done, but I don't think he ever addressed it. And then he never addressed it with us until Sunday morning after that game.
Wow.
As a staff.
That's kind of fascinating. Do you think
he always said that he will be remembered with Woody Hayes, because he loved Ohio State. Said he'd always be remembered by Woody Hayes, that his last game ended with a fight with Clemson.
Wow.
Because Woody Hayes, the Gator Bowl deal, and then his last game, the fight there with Clemson.
Do you think that South Carolina's players, knowing and believing that, hey, our coach is gone, that contributed at all, combined with what you said about the garbage going in with the NBA stuff, contributed to the just demeanor at all?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not a bit. No, I don't think it had any, our coach isn't here. What are they going to do to us? I don't believe that one bit, because, and I'm not going to sit here and say Clemson started it or Clemson didn't or South Carolina started it, because both squads were equally guilty. And, it never had to get to the point that it got to, had both teams had a little bit more, self-control. So I'm not going to sit here and say it was, South Carolina's fault or Clemson's fault. It was both teams' fault. And, just left a black eye in college football. Like I said, it cost both teams a shot to go to a bowl game. And, you review the film, I still got the film, because something like this was the 20-year anniversary of it or something. I saw something on ESPN or something during the season that 20 years ago today is when that fight happened, back in November. So I think both sides, nobody came out of that game a winner. I mean, Clemson won the game, obviously, but, from a national perception, it was, it didn't help either team.
Can we go back to your at the Hill scene or confrontation or whatever, and you said they don't know what they just did. Can I get you to elaborate on that and just sort of?
Well, I mean, I've been at Clemson when other teams had waved you down the hill,
mm-hmm.
And, I've been at, places, where, you look at the old Miami, Florida State games, when, teams would come out and at the, and where the horse is going to throw down the spear and just, it ignites everything and just, I don't want to say disrespect, when you do something like that to an opponent, but, I've been at Clemson enough to know that, how sacred and how much pride they take in running down the hill, that you don't need to make them run down that hill any faster. And, so I just, I told my buddy there, and I said, these boys don't know what they just did.
You worked one season under Spurrier. What did you learn about him, about working for him? Just what type of insight did you get from that you couldn't get sort of when you're just, watching him from afar?
Absolutely loved it. It was as enjoyable of a year that I've had in a long time. Just his openness, how he communicated with the staff, how he communicated with the media, how open he was, just, how he talked to the players, he was, when coaches say, I believe in competition, the best player is going to play. A lot of coaches say that, but not always works that way. It worked that way with him. And, I had a blast. I learned a lot. And, I think he's perceived in the media as a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky. But really he's so confident, that it's misinterpreted, his confidence is misinterpreted as arrogance and cocky. And I just, it was a lot of fun, and, how he coached, how coached in games, how he coached in practice. It was a really, really fun year for me.
I guess he wasn't big on locker room speeches before a game or at halftime. What's your recollection of that side of him? Just sort of the motivational part.
I've always believed, and I didn't get this from him, but I've always believed that if a coach has to give you a motivational speech 5 minutes before you run out of that locker room, he's done a bad job Sunday through Friday. That you get them ready Sunday through Friday, and Saturday, pregame speeches are, more reminders. And that's what he was. He was more of, a reminder. This is what we talked about. This is how what we have to do to win the game. This is what we're going to do. And so he was more, of that than, the fire and brimstone.
What about his offensive mind and schematics and the way he moved the pieces around? Were you able to sort of appreciate once you were able to go sort of behind the curtain with him as a schemer?
Yeah, I thought one of his greatest strengths as a play caller was his ability to adapt and change during the course of the game. Where you go in, you might think, this route concept is going to be really good, and you get in the game and it's not, and we put something together that we didn't even practice, and he had the ability to do it, to communicate it with us as coaches and then the players, and have success with it during the course of the game. So I just thought his ability to adapt during the course of the game, make adjustments, was one of his strengths.
What's next for you? I mean, I guess you don't know what's next, but what would you desire to be next if I could add it?
I still want to coach because I know I can I can add value, and I can still impact these players. I'll be 66 in a couple weeks. Is somebody out there going to take a chance on me as a position coach? I don't know. I'm hopeful somebody will take a chance on me as an analyst, because all these Power 5 schools now have got 100 analysts. And I hope, I'm trying to let everybody get through signing date next week and, Christmas, and then I'm going to start calling, and I'm hopeful somebody will, give me an opportunity to stay in this business. I'm realistic about my age. I'm still young. I still have the fire. I still run. I still chase them kids on the field. I'm still enthusiastic about it. I'm still passionate about it. So I know I can add value, and I'm just hopeful that somebody will give me an opportunity to be an analyst on their staff, if not a position coach.
One of the things that really sort of dawned on me, or I guess I started to think about more after Jeff Scott got let go at South Florida last year, was it's not just the head coach and his family that are, dealing with, the fact that they've been let go and all that comes with that. It's also this guy, and any head coach has an entire building that has bought into his culture and his messaging and is dependent on that guy at the top. And so I'm curious of how difficult it is for you as you're dealing with not just the sort of enormity of your personal what affects just you, but also you're probably trying to help a lot of people find work and get jobs. Can you maybe help understand and what that's like? Just sort of sharing the difficulty of that end of it.
Yeah, I've really struggled with it, and because especially at this level, the Group of 5 level, you because you can't pay assistant coaches, very much money. So you're getting young guys that are just starting out in the profession or been in the profession, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I had Tommy West, but I wasn't paying him much money. But, he was on the back end of his career, and he's going to retire. But the other guys, the young guys that are just getting started that, now they got to go look for a job, it's going to be hard for them. And because just like the players we get here, you're not getting 4 and 5 star guys. You're getting 2-star guys that you got to develop for a couple years. And just like the coaches, you're getting young coaches because you can't pay them, that you're developing them and helping them grow. And now all of a sudden, they're out of a job. So, yeah, it's hard. And that's bothered me is probably more than me getting let go myself personally.
I think the last time we spoke was about 2 years ago when some guy named Nick Eason from Auburn took the Clemson job, took the defensive tackles job at Clemson. And you and Nick are exceptionally tight. And I actually got to know Nick on a deeper level last spring when he sat down with me for about 3 hours to share his life story, which is, it's almost like you can't believe it that he suffered, the trauma of 20 people, not one. So just interested to hear your thoughts on Nick and y'all, the closeness, the bond that y'all share, and just your insights on him.
Yeah, I love Nick Eason. I love him, as a man, respect him as a coach. But, when I went through Toombs County there recruiting him, he had a really, really low test score. And, didn't look like he was going to make it, all that. Nobody hardly recruited him. But when I talked to him on the phone, and that was, again, where you could talk to him face to face like you can now. When I talked to him on the phone, I told Coach West there's something about this guy. And, he took the test again and got 20 points higher, and I'm keep talking to him and everybody's telling me, Stock, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. He's not going to make it. He took it. He got 40 points higher. He took it again and got 100 points higher. And I think he took it 9 or 10 times. And he finally, was getting close. And people kept telling me, Stock, you're wasting your time. That if he does make it, Georgia's going to come back in on him. And a small town Georgia kid is not going to leave the state of Georgia. He's going to go to Georgia if they want him, because that's what most of them did back then. And I said, no, I've got a relationship with him. He's going to make it. So he made it. And, I said, Nick, you're good, man. You made it. Da-da-da-da-da. And he said, I'm going to take it one more time because my goal was to make 1,000. And I said, Nick, you don't need to. He said, no, I want to. I set a goal to get 1,000. And so he takes it again. He gets 1,010 or whatever it was. And, and then sure enough, Georgia comes in and offers him, and all those other ones come back on him. But because I stayed on him when nobody did, and we had a relationship, me and his mom, me and his grandmother, his little brother, it's recruiting back then is so much different now. Now what's it going to cost? NIL money. You need 300,000, $1 million. What's it going to cost? You don't have those relationships. You don't writing letters and develop a relationship with the mom and the grandmother and the family and everything like that. Now that's the sad part of where recruiting is today. But I just love that kid. He's not a kid. I love him as a man, and just his NFL career, his NFL coaching career, his college career. I know he's made Clemson. He made Clemson better when he was a player there, and I know he's making Clemson and those kids that he coaches better now as a coach. So words, I guess the 3 best words you can say is I love you, and I love that guy. I respect that man, and I think the world of him.
And I guess y'all stayed close through the years. I guess he consulted with you when he was weigh in the decision whether to leave Auburn and come back to his alma mater?
I don't think he weighed it. I called him, and when I had heard about it, I said, Nick, have you called Dabo yet? Call him, tell him you want that job. Do you want me to call somebody? He said, I think I'm all right. They reached out, and I said, well, when are you going to tell them yes? And, so it was, that deal wasn't any, he didn't need me to talk him into going. And, so I'm just glad it worked out for him. And, cause he's as good a man, that you want, he's who you want coaching your son.
I think one of the recent times I've talked to you was a couple of years ago when Graham Neff took over as AD, and I called because I remembered when he came here, I think I was talking to Russell Patterson, and Russell said, "Oh man, they love Stock loves Graham Neff up there at Middle Tennessee." I'm just curious for your thoughts on his rise to one of the most prominent athletic director roles out there.
No, it's, you can see young coaches, and you can start with players. You can see a freshman come in, and you can see pretty early that this guy's got it. He's got a chance to be an NFL guy if he'll work. You see young coaches, if they'll stay at it, they're going to be a superstar in the profession. Administrators, the same thing. And when I met Graham, he had come from Georgia Tech, and he's a young guy, and you could just tell immediately that he was going to be successful. And so I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. And, when Terry Don left, no, it wasn't Terry Don, but other one's at Miami now. Yeah. When he left, I called Graham. I said, I hope you're going to go after it. There's nothing I can do probably to help you. But if there is, you tell him to call me. And, but you could see, he had the work ethic. He had the communication skills. He has the vision. He's a smart guy. He's a great communicator, great leader. He's got all the intangibles that you want in a position as athletic director at a Power 5 school.
I have to ask you if you can confirm an anecdote that I heard from y'all's visit to Clemson in 2009 for that opener. Your kickoff guy was told, do not kick it to number 28, CJ Spiller. He kicks it to CJ, takes it back to the house, and then he comes to the sideline and said, oh, was that Spiller?
No, that wasn't exactly how it went. It was, all summer, all camp, we had practiced kicking away from him, kicking, over here. And Kevin Youngblood, all my guys, were at the game. And I told them before the game, I said, I'll bet you $100 that CJ doesn't return one for a touchdown against us today. And so we kick off, and sure enough, he kicks it over there to the right side, and CJ runs it back. And Alan Gendro, he comes over. He's our freshman kicker. And I said, what are you doing? I thought we practiced all summer of not kicking to him. He goes, Coach, I'm sorry, my adrenaline was just too high. And I said, well, that's why we practiced not kicking to him.
That is great. Well, I've kept you for a long.
I lost my bet to Blood too.
You had to pay up.
He hadn't taken it yet.
Well, I've kept you for a long time. I don't know if there's anything we haven't covered that you want to dig into, but this has been great. Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Larry, and just tell all my pals back at Clemson have a Merry Christmas. You have a Merry Christmas, and good luck in their bowl game and all that. And I'm always here if you ever need me. Well, great conversation. Nobody asked me. Dabo certainly hasn't asked me, but if Rick Stockstill wants to be an analyst somewhere, wow, I think he'd be a heck of an addition to Dabo Swinney's staff here at Clemson. Appreciate the support of our sponsors. for helping make this happen. And, of course, thanks to every one of you for hitting that play button every week. Greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the week.